Hey, this is Billy F. Gibbons. Some of you might know us from ZZ Top, but today we're here to talk about our good buddy Prince.
One of the first times, I guess you could say, when I met Prince, in the NPG Music Club, the DJ booth was way up top, kind of in the catwalk area, I guess you'd call it. And Prince walked up, and I was in the middle of mixing two of his songs together. I believe it was Kiss and Erotic City. And at the time, the other DJ, Brother Jules, was working on a mix. And I was in the middle of concentrating on mixing these two songs together, and all of a sudden Prince just kind of shows up, and I'm like, all right, okay, there's Prince. And he leans over and he asks me, he said, "Is this Jules's mix?" And I said, "Huh?" And he said, "Is this Jules's mix?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, you're mixing this?" And I was like, "Yep." And then he just, cool, and he just took off, floated off.
The way I look at it is all the artists back then were making that step of becoming. And for me, growing up with them and knowing pretty much all of them, I never knew the lineup of talent until I started really listening as I sat down and listened to some of the stuff that they put on wax. And you know, it went from that to just the amazing side of that Minneapolis sound, which really still does exist today. But back then in 77, 78, what would happen when it comes to radio and stations, what they did was they would have you as an artist, you would have your music and your stuff here, but then they'd have a separate one, a section of music where it said Minneapolis sound. Anything that came out of Minneapolis, they were looking at it differently than they did of anything and everything else. And radio stations. Anybody and everything, even the record labels were doing the same thing, because that's how they figured out, well, if this is that sound, there's something about this sound that's different. And they couldn't figure out what that different was. But to me, I think that difference was they put their soul and their heart in their music. It's all about feeling, and that's what music can set your mood all day. It can change your mood all day. All you have to do is listen to it.
There was a art place downtown called Walker Art in the Guthrie Theater. Walker was a very famous millionaire in our state. He had a daughter named Louise McCanlon. And when we would get the bands graduated, we could call Louise, and this woman would provide the money to put the instruments and the amps and things together and the keyboards so we could develop these children who graduated into the band of their choice. The band of Prince's choice was called Grand Central Station, even though Larry called his Larry Graham, Princeton named theirs Grand Central Station. And that was the group that he produced after he got done traveling with the family. The places he went first was Des Moines, Iowa, Waterloo, Iowa, Monroe City, Missouri, Hannibal, Missouri, Bowling Green, Missouri. Those are the first places he traveled. And he played in between his teacher, Sonny Thompson. So the notion that how he was made in the class, we had to teach you how to step and how to dress. Bobby Lau and them had already set down the tradition of how the music was going to be taught. Now, what made the kids catapult and do better than most musicians is because the only music you could hear, if it was going to be black, it was going to have to be these musicians, because we had no radio station. So we had to perfect it. You could woodshed at the end of the song, but play the song that the people are dying to hear that they cannot hear on the airwaves in the state of Minnesota because the music was white only.